So, this has been happening for a few months now, almost a year, and I am at my wit's end, and I just need some help. My darling dog died earlier this year, and I've been wanting to get a memorial tattoo in her honor. For months, I've been talking and meeting up with different artists until I found one I liked and trusted. While I was doing this, a friend of mine told me that his wife did tattoos. I was interested in the work, so I asked to see the portfolio. If I'm being honest, the work isn't great. So I politely told him that it's not really my style, but thank you for telling me about her. Now on to the problem. That conversation happened in January, and every single time I see him, he goes, "Did you get the tattoo yet? If not, you should let my wife do it." And every time I would say, "No thank you, I found an artist I like and trust," and he would glare at me. Then one time, I ran into his wife, and she asked me about the tattoo. I told her I haven't gotten it yet. Then she would go on about how she can do a much better job, and she wouldn't charge me as much. I told her the same thing I've been telling her husband, that I found an artist I really like. And she goes, "Well, I have an artist I love and trust too, but I give other artists a chance too." I kind of got frustrated and just walked away. She overheard me talking about taking my niece out to get her eyebrow pierced. And she jumped in, praising her piercing abilities and showing off her own ear piercing that looked like it was on the verge of falling out of her ear. I said I'd think about it, and she finally stopped asking. For that day. I'm so tired of hearing how good she is from both of them, almost every day. Why can't they take no for an answer? Am I the only one in the damn universe that wants a tattoo right now? Please help. I don't want to be mean to them, but I also want them to stop asking me. I think I may be the jerk because I've just been beating around the bush instead of just saying I don't want work by her. Edit 1. Thank you everyone so much for all the advice and coaching me on what to say to them. I have an appointment to get my tattoo tomorrow. I'll update you guys if anything happens when my friend sees it. Edit 2. Wow, so this got a bit more attention than I thought it would. Lol, I'm sorry that I can't reply to everyone, but I've read all the comments. I came back here to say I just realized how one-sided our friendship actually is. I've brought her dinner countless times. My boyfriend and I get her and her husband gifts. This one time, she actually asked for something more expensive. And we got it for her anyway, because she looked like she was about to cry. Every time I see her, or her husband, they ask when I'm going to bring them dinner again, because they love my cooking so much. I just stopped because I feel so underappreciated. But I want to be a good friend. But why aren't they doing the same? Small update. My tattoo got rescheduled to next week. The design isn't all there, so we're going to work on it a bit longer. Another small update. I ran into the husband yesterday, and he decided to joke about my outfit. He came up to me and said loudly, "Halloween is over, honey, you gotta change." I kinda ignored the comment and went to grab a soda. He followed me and kept saying, Halloween is over, over and over again. So I snapped and said, "Nice frosted tips, you know the 90s ended years ago, right?" He got quiet and said, "Well, you look nice." I thanked him, paid for my stuff, and started to walk away. Then he proceeded to yell out to me, "Halloween is over, ha ha!" I turned around and said, "This is exactly why I don't want to get tattooed by your wife. Can't keep your opinions to yourself. And I'm sick. I want to go home and not bicker about nonsense. So I'm going to go home and take my meds and go to sleep." He got mad and said, "Yeah, you need to take your meds," then walked off. What a jerk. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. You've been nice, now it's time to be clear. I do not care for the work in your portfolio, and I am not interested in your services. If you want to be very honest, I am not interested in your services. I find your work and business practices to be unprofessional, and I will not use them, nor will I recommend your services to others. If that's enough to ruin the friendship, they were not friends with you for any other reason other than a possible business transaction. Changed wording. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Does she have a shop or do it in a house? Is she health certified? If she's not, I'd say I prefer someone who has a shop, etc., so that if something went wrong, they would be liable and you would be compensated. OP. I had a friend who did tattoo work in her home, and she wasn't awful, but wasn't good. So, I get you. She would always show me her work, and I could never give an honest opinion. I used to wonder how people ended up with bad tattoos. Now I know. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments and support on my last post. It's been a wild few months since then, and I've got quite the update for you all. So, after the last incident with my friend's husband, things took a turn for the dramatic. I finally got my memorial tattoo for my dog, and it's beautiful. The artist I chose did an incredible job, and I couldn't be happier. But when my friend and his wife found out, they were less than thrilled. I ran into them at a mutual friend's birthday party. The husband saw my tattoo, and his face just dropped. He pulled me aside and asked why I didn't let his wife do it. I tried to be as polite as possible, explaining that I had already chosen an artist whose style I really connected with. He didn't take it well. He started raising his voice, saying that I didn't support them and that I was a bad friend. It was so embarrassing. Everyone at the party could hear him. His wife joined in, and that's when things got really heated. She accused me of thinking I was better than them, and that I didn't appreciate all they'd done for me. I reminded her of all the times I'd helped them out, like bringing them dinner and buying them gifts. But she just scoffed and said those things didn't count. The confrontation ended with me walking away, feeling really shaken. I thought that would be the end of it, but nope, it wasn't. A few days later, I got a message from the wife. She said she wanted to apologize and asked if we could meet up. I agreed, hoping we could clear the air. We met at a coffee shop, and she started off by saying sorry. But then she switched gears and tried to sell me on getting another tattoo, this time by her. She even brought her portfolio to show me her improved work. It was awkward, to say the least. I stood my ground and told her I wasn't interested. She got upset and started crying right there in the coffee shop. She said that they were struggling financially and that they really needed the business. I felt bad for her, but I also felt manipulated. I told her I would think about it, just to get out of the situation. After that, things calmed down for a bit. I didn't see much of them, which was a relief. But then, another surprise came my way. I was at the grocery store when I bumped into the husband again. He was alone this time, and he actually apologized for his behavior at the party. He said he was under a lot of stress and took it out on me. I accepted his apology, and we had a surprisingly pleasant conversation. He even complimented my tattoo, saying it looked good. Just when I thought things were getting better, the wife started posting passive-aggressive things on social media. She never mentioned me by name, but it was pretty obvious she was talking about me. Stuff like, some people don't know a good thing when they see it, and it's sad when friends don't support your dreams. I just ignored it, not wanting to start more drama. But then, the most jaw-dropping moment happened. I was at a local fair with my boyfriend, and we ran into them. They were both acting super friendly, like nothing had ever happened. And then, out of nowhere, the wife pulled out her phone and showed me a picture of a tattoo she had done on someone else. It was a replica of my dog's memorial tattoo. I was shocked. She said she loved the design so much that she just had to do it for someone else. I didn't know what to say. I felt like my personal tribute to my dog had been copied without my permission. But before I could react, her husband chimed in, saying that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. They both laughed it off, but I could tell they were trying to get a rise out of me. I decided not to give them the satisfaction. I just smiled, said it was an interesting choice, and walked away with my boyfriend. We spent the rest of the day enjoying the fair, and I refused to let them ruin it for me. Now for the next story. We, male and female in their 50s, have a 9-month-old puppy. I've struggled to train him and hired a professional trainer to help us out. Even so, he does puppy things, like chewing anything he can find that looks interesting. He has lots of specific dog toys, but they're clearly not as well designed as all the human-owned things that are so much more desirable to his puppy brain. Over Christmas, my brother Ray, 37, and his husband Kevin, 50, wanted to stay with us. I refused at first, but finally agreed because accommodations are insanely expensive during the summer holidays. Before I agreed, I gave them a full rundown on the puppy's behavior. I told them they can't leave anything on the floor, and the door to their bedroom has to be shut whenever they're not there. To make things easier, I cleared out the top shelf of the cupboard for them and bought several boxes with lids that click into place. When they arrived, I reminded them again. My point was demonstrated when the puppy came trotting out to greet them with a pair of safety goggles in his mouth. I didn't even know I owned safety goggles and have no idea where they could have come from. Maybe he convinced a passing tradie to throw them over the fence to him? Anyway, Kevin bought a new pair of R.M. Williams boots. He left the box on the floor of the living room, and the puppy devoured them. He's demanding I pay to replace them because it was my dog that destroyed them. I'm refusing because I gave him fair warning and provided a secure place to store anything he didn't want chewed up. They also insisted on staying here, claiming they couldn't afford accommodations, But I pointed out that if Kevin can afford $650 for boots, he can afford a couple of nights in a local hotel. I think I'm in the right, but my husband thinks I should pay. He said I'd be upset if the dog ate my boots. I said the dog did eat my boots, although mine weren't $650, and I changed my behavior to avoid it from happening again. Husband says it's not fair to expect people to remember, but I think that's a silly argument, and said if he really thinks we should pay, the money will come out of our joint account. Now he's sitting in the living room with Kevin, and they're both sulking. Am I the idiot? Edit for further context. This blew up a bit overnight, so I thought I'd add a bit more information. The puppy is crate trained and responds to his commands about 90% of the time. The living room the boots were left in was upstairs. The puppy is not allowed up there, and there is a gate at the bottom of the stairs that Kevin constantly left open, despite me reminding him to keep it closed and putting a sign up that says, "Shut the gate." However, I do not like Kevin, and I put up with him for my brother's sake. When reflecting on everything, I ask myself, would I replace the boots if it was anyone else? And I might, but I don't know anyone else that would stay at my place that would be so oblivious to the precautions needed to protect their belongings. My sister and her spouse and kids stayed earlier in the year, and one of the kids left their Skechers on the floor in the downstairs living room. The dog ate them, and I offered to replace those, but my sister refused because the kids, 15, 17, 19, are old enough to take responsibility and had been warned not to leave things lying around. And that was before the trainer had been engaged, and the puppy was just a ball of undirected, destructive chaos energy. I also sent them a text before agreeing to allow them to stay that said, "Dudes, the risk is yours. If the dog eats your expensive toys, that's on you. You have been warned." Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. I have a puppy. They chew everything. You gave them fair warning, bought them puppy-proof storage, and they forgot to use it or ignored you. That's on them, not you. Comment 2. Not the idiot. This one is really clear. Not a fan of your husband being happy to spend your money and then sulking about the suggestion of him pitching in. Don't replace the boots. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. I never expected so much support and advice. Well, it's been a month since the boot chewing incident, and boy, do I have an update for you. After the whole debacle with Kevin's boots, things got even more tense around the house. My husband, who initially thought I should pay for the boots, started to see my side of things, especially after he found his favourite leather belt turned into a chew toy. It was a gift from me for our 20th anniversary, so it stung a bit more than usual, but we both agreed it was our responsibility to keep such things out of the puppy's reach. The tension between Kevin and me, however, escalated. He was still sulking about his boots, and I was getting increasingly frustrated with his attitude. It didn't help that Ray was caught in the middle, trying to mediate between his husband and his sister. I love Ray. He's always been the peacemaker in the family. But this time, even his patience was wearing thin. One evening, things came to a head. Kevin had left his expensive watch on the bathroom counter. You guessed it, our little furry Houdini managed to get his paws on it. The watch was a goner. Kevin was livid, and I was at my wit's end. I reminded him of the countless warnings and the text I had sent before they even arrived. But he wouldn't listen. He accused me of not training the dog properly and said some pretty hurtful things about my ability to manage my household. Ray tried to calm things down, but Kevin was having none of it. In a moment of heated confrontation, Kevin let slip that they could have afforded a hotel, but chose to stay with us to save money for a vacation they were planning. That was a jaw-dropping moment for me. All this time, they had been claiming poverty, and here they were, saving up for a fancy trip. The next day, Ray came to me, his eyes red from what I assumed was a long night of arguing. He confessed that he was heartbroken over the whole situation. He loved Kevin, but he was starting to see a side of him that he didn't like. The materialistic attitude, the lack of responsibility, it was all becoming too much. Ray had always been the more down-to-earth one, and this was putting a strain on their relationship. As for my husband and me, we had our own heartbreak to deal with. We had always been a team, but this situation had driven a wedge between us. It took a lot of late-night talks and a few tears to get back on track. We realized that our puppy, as much as we loved him, was a handful, and we needed to be more vigilant. In the end, Kevin and Ray cut their visit short. They left on a sour note, and I haven't heard much from them since. Ray sends the occasional text to check in, but it's clear that things are not the same. I miss my brother, and I hate that this has caused such a rift. The puppy is still a work in progress. The trainer has been a godsend, and we're seeing improvements every day. But we've learned our lesson. We're much more careful about what we leave within his reach. And as for guests, well, we're taking a break from hosting for a while. Now, for the next story. So I, 18-year-old male, have a half-sister Elizabeth, 26-year-old female. We share a mom. My dad became her stepdad when she was 5 or 6. Her dad is or was a deadbeat. She never knew him really. She did have his mom in her life for a while, until she died when Elizabeth was around 7. My dad really did his best to be a good stepdad and father figure for Elizabeth. My mom always hoped Elizabeth would grow to love my dad and consider him her dad. He went above and beyond from what I can tell for her. They also made sure she didn't feel replaced or ignored after I was born. But she always had some kind of disdain for my dad, unless she wanted something, or could get something from him. She would tell him that he was not her dad or parent, but if she wanted something, or if it was Christmas or her birthday, she would not call him dad, but would mention he wanted to be. She never cared about me and was coolly indifferent to me my whole life, with some honest dislike mixed in. I felt it. She admitted it. She told me constantly that we weren't real siblings and she didn't care about me, but she would play pretend when others were watching. There were times she really put on a good show too, but when nobody was looking, her true colors shone through. Nothing changed when she became an adult. I don't think we have said a single thing to each other in the 8 years since she moved out, and we haven't been in the same room since then. My dad still does his best to be there for her, but she still treats him like he's a stain on her shoe. She got engaged a few months ago and told my dad this whole spiel about how he was there for her, etc., and how they weren't sure if they could afford a nice wedding, and she was wondering if he would pay. He said, of course. She practically ran like her butt was on fire once she got the money. Then she announced that she had met her biological dad, and he would be the father of the bride at her wedding. And my dad was just a regular old guest. My dad took it all in stride, but my mom took it badly, and she cried when she realized Elizabeth had used him for money. She realized Elizabeth never once said she appreciated or was glad Dad had done all these nice things, just that he had. I wasn't mentioned on the wedding invitation and never got my own, but when my mom asked, she said sure I was invited. That basically told me all I needed to know. But even before that, I didn't care if I was invited. I knew I wouldn't go. I told my parents. My mom was upset. She said we were so close, etc. I told her no, and pointed out how she has admitted to my face she doesn't care, and how she hasn't said a single word to me since I was 10. My dad had his eyes open somewhat, but said he would still go, he still loves her, etc. I told him he should take a stand, given that all he is to her is someone who buys nice things, not someone she cares about at all. My mom said that wasn't fair. We need to be there for the wedding. I shouldn't encourage Dad to stop caring. She said I'm behaving badly like Elizabeth has. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I'm going to go. No idiots here. As for your question, there are 2 different answers. You are not the H for refusing to go. As for wanting your dad to make a stand, he is. It just isn't the stand you want him to make. Yes, she's taking advantage of him, he knows that. However, the statement he chooses to make is that he'll still be there. Comment 2. OMG, Elizabeth is such an AH. Taking your dad's money, then announcing she has met her real dad who will be the father of the bride, is a jerk move. Time for your dad to cut her off. Don't feel bad for cutting her off either, because it seems like she has already done it to you. Now, for the update. Hey Reddit. It's been 2 weeks since I last posted about my half-sister Elizabeth's wedding drama, and a lot has happened. Buckle up, because this update is a wild ride. First off, let me fill you in on some history. Elizabeth has always been the type to hold grudges. When we were kids, she blamed my dad for her biological father's absence. She'd throw tantrums whenever my dad tried to discipline her, screaming that he wasn't her real dad. It was tough on everyone, especially since my dad genuinely cared for her. He'd show up at her soccer games, clap the loudest at her school plays, and he never missed a single birthday. But Elizabeth? She'd just roll her eyes and mutter about how he was trying too hard. Now, fast forward to the present. After my last post, things got even more heated. My dad, despite everything, decided to attend the wedding. He said he couldn't turn his back on Elizabeth, even if she had on him. My mom, still hurt by Elizabeth's actions, reluctantly agreed to go for my dad's sake. But here's where it gets juicy. A few days before the wedding, Elizabeth called my dad in a panic. Her fiancé had bailed on her taking a chunk of the wedding funds with him. She was a mess, sobbing about how everything was ruined. My dad, being the soft-hearted guy he is, offered to help her sort things out. He didn't want her to be alone in this mess, so he went over to her place to talk. I wasn't there, but from what he told me, it was a disaster. Elizabeth was in full meltdown mode, and in the heat of the moment, she blurted out that she wished my dad was her real dad because he was the only one who ever stuck by her. It was a shock to my dad, who had always thought she resented him. Now, remember her biological dad who was supposed to walk her down the aisle? Turns out, the guy was a no-show. He had reached out to Elizabeth after all these years, promised her the world, and then disappeared again. Classic. The wedding day arrived, and it was a mess from the start. The venue was double booked, the caterer was late, and to top it off, a pipe burst, flooding the reception area. But the real drama happened during the ceremony. As Elizabeth walked down the aisle alone, she suddenly stopped, turned to my dad in the crowd, and asked him to walk her the rest of the way. The room went silent. My dad, tears in his eyes, walked up and took her arm. It was a moment straight out of a movie, and even I felt a lump in my throat watching it. But here's the kicker. After the ceremony, Elizabeth pulled me aside. She apologized for everything, said she was wrong about me, and that she wanted to start over. I was skeptical, but I figured maybe this whole disaster had been a wake-up call for her. We started talking, and for the first time in years, it felt like we were actually siblings. She even laughed at one of my dumb jokes. It was weird, but nice. Now, for the misunderstanding. After the wedding, rumors started flying among our relatives. They thought Elizabeth's meltdown and the last-minute aisle walk with my dad were all part of some elaborate plan to humiliate her biological father. They thought she had orchestrated the whole thing as revenge for him ditching her again. But that wasn't true at all. Elizabeth was genuinely upset, and my dad walking her down the aisle was a spur-of-the-moment decision fueled by emotion. It took a lot of explaining to clear that up with the family, and some still don't believe it. So, that's where we're at. The wedding was a disaster, but it brought some unexpected moments of clarity. Elizabeth and I are cautiously rebuilding our relationship, and my dad, well, he's just happy he got to walk his daughter down the aisle, even if it wasn't how he imagined it. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.